let's get started talking about critical thinking. This is chapter 5 in the Cornerstones text. I recommend you either read it before watching this or follow along with the text while we're going through the presentation. This presentation is broken up into a couple parts, so it will make it easier for you to navigate through it throughout the week. You don't have to do it necessarily all in one sitting. All right, let's get started here. I can figure this out. Okay. Talking about critical thinking, Cornerstones outlines critical thinking into 8 steps. So this is a really helpful way to think about this process in a more micro way, a smaller way to help you understand it. So first, the text talks about understanding emotional intelligence, and we're going to do a little work on that in this first chunk, in this first section of the PowerPoint. And then changing perspective and why that's important. That's an important aspect in critical thinking, and when we do that little debate that I mentioned to you last week, this is going to help you exercise that change of perspective, whether you like it or not. Number 3 is asking questions. Being comfortable with some doubt, understanding that sometimes things are not totally certain, but asking the right questions at the right times to make sure when you're taking a risk, it's a calculated risk. Number 4 is identifying, defining, narrowing, and solving problems. Always so much easier said than done. And this is something I help students with all the time. And it's something that I'm not immune from. It's a hard thing to do when you're in the middle of a stressful situation to figure out how to solve a problem. But by developing these other aspects of your brain and of your emotional intelligence ahead of time, it'll make problem solving much easier. Number 5 is making intelligent decisions. I'd like to say that we all, you all, make intelligent decisions all the time. I'd also like to add that we are all human, and there's probably times in your life that you can look back and pinpoint a decision that was not so intelligent. We're all victim to it and subject to it. It's part of life, it's a part of learning, but it's also a part of developing your critical thinking. Number 6 is differentiating fact versus opinion. There's a lot of times people will say things with such convincing vigor that it sounds like fact, but it's really an opinion. So we're going to work on developing the skill to be able to weed out those people who are not quite giving total fact and really giving more of their opinions. It's tricky sometimes. The news is very clever at doing this. Number 7 is seeking truth in arguments and persuasion. Again, we're going to exercise that a little bit when we do our debate. And number 8, and I apologize, I haven't numbered it here, but we're in the top corner here. Number 8 is thinking creatively and being resourceful. And we're going to watch a video on that shows a little bit about how Steph Curry is extremely creative and also very resourceful. Okay, so what is emotional intelligence? So we know what intelligence is. That's something that talks about how smart someone is. Emotional intelligence talks about how you manage your emotions. Not only how you manage your emotions or how we manage our emotions, but also how we understand our emotions. Have you ever gotten so angry about something and then walked away from it maybe even 10, 15 minutes later, or even maybe a whole day later and looked back and thought, why did I get so mad about that? Or have you ever watched a commercial and just busted out crying? Come on, I can't be the only one, right? But those emotions that surge up on us, and sometimes it seems so silly, like, why am I crying right now? Or have you ever gotten the giggles in class and you can't stop laughing? I know that happens to some of you in our class. I see it and I hear it. It happens. It's those emotions sometimes get out of control. And I'm not suggesting that we stifle our emotions, that we don't cry when we see a commercial, or that we don't have those uncontrollable fits of laughter. Because personally, I love to laugh, and I love to laugh with that level of intensity that I can't even stop. Sure, it's good if it's an appropriate place, but at any rate, understanding it is really important, and why we act the way we do, and also importantly, why we react the way we do. Some of that is ingrained. Some of our reactions are actually things that we've learned, things that we've witnessed people that are important to us do. Have you ever had a time in your life when someone has said, you remind me a lot of fill in the blank? And they might be talking about a family member, a good friend of yours. Because as we hang out with or spend time with these people that are important to us, we sometimes adopt their behaviors and their attitudes. It's not uncommon. We're humans. We're like little walking sponges. So that idea of understanding our emotions and how we manage those emotions, and sometimes it links to our behaviors, can be really helpful in developing our emotional intelligence. What it really boils down to is that concept of think before you act. Always easier said than done, but it's think before you act. Why this is important is because if we just walked around saying, oh, here's Ricardo. He has a high IQ, the highest IQ of anyone I've known. Isn't he amazing? And Ricardo, I do think that you're amazing, but I also think that you have a very high emotional intelligence, or an EQ. That shows that you've developed these other parts of your brain and you've learned how to manage and understand your emotions. It's more than just book smart. It's more than just understanding 2 + 2, but it's also understanding empathy and also how to incorporate some social norms and behaviors so that you can manage and understand your emotions. One good way to assess your emotional intelligence is to see if you are good at reading others' emotions. So this is a good time to hit pause and take this quick assessment. It's on the Greater Good at berkeley.edu. I'm going to click on it just so that you can see what it looks like. It takes you to a web page where you actually will answer, whoops, there's a quick ad or something. You'll answer 20 questions. And what you'll simply be doing after you hit this take the quiz button is you're going to do your best to answer each of these questions. So if the first one says this face is expressing, I don't know, I think this person is expressing fear maybe? I'm going to go with fear. I'm not sure why, but I hit get the answer and I see that I have it correct. The answer was fear. And there's a little bit of description on what the facial expression does. It also just tells us what each facial feature does during each of those expressions. So this might not be accurate for every single person, but in general, this is the face of fear. So by going through this quiz, again, it's 20 questions. You'll get an understanding of your understanding of your emotional intelligence by simply being able to read the faces of other people that you don't even know. So this is where I recommend that you can stop the video, take a quick pause. It'll probably take you about 10 minutes to do this. Okay, this leads us to journal number 7. And this is something that you're going to submit as a Dropbox. The journal is listed as Journal to Submit on the home page, and you can submit this journal at any time during this week. It's due before our next class meeting. So in journal number 7, I'd like you to respond to how well you read other people. How did you do on this assessment? Did you get all 20 of them correct? What do you think is important in understanding your own emotional intelligence? And I'll give you a hint. Chapter 5 gives you a lot of ideas about ways that you can understand your own emotional intelligence. There's also a lot of emotional intelligence assessments online. There were so many out there, I couldn't figure out which one to potentially give to you all. They're quite long. They're about 150 questions. But check a few of them out. They're pretty fun. I played with a few of them myself. And you can better understand your emotional intelligence, of course, with more assessments as well. I'm going to stop here, and we are going to pick up with the next segment. Whoops, skipping ahead. We're going to start with the next segment in just a minute.